Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Mary, you're back.
Larry's here. He's in the house.
We wrangled him in for another episode of the Healer's Corner, and this one's going to be pretty a pretty big topic, right? And I think this might be mostly you two because I'm like, I don't know enough on this to be a conversationalist. Going over parallel lives and quantum leaping. And the only thing I have to offer is like I watched the show Quantum Leap. The original, not when they try to reboot that not too long ago. Um,
I think they did. I
yeah,
think they did.
I watched
But
the
there
original,
was
the
there
OG.
was another there was another show called The Librarians a few years ago.
Was it
And
the same?
even though it was supposed to be stop whatever happening or don't alter the history, but they did go into quantum lives there.
Nice. Hey, chair.
Yeah.
So, wow, parallel lives and quantum leap. How do the two even come together? One sounds very sciency, and one almost sounds kind of woo-woo.
Well, I think to start, we need to kind of explain a little bit about the quantum theory, and that is that um, there's this thing called entanglement. That everything we do, every person we meet, everything that's going on is entangled in our reality. And on the science side of it, it's talking about the quantum particles or the atoms and the elements that they're constantly in what they refer to as superposition, which means one quantum particle could be in many places at the exact same time doing many different things. And it could be spinning clockwise in one universe, and there's this belief of multi galaxies, where it's not just one galaxy, that we're living on many different levels in many different places. And the quantum particle, it can do anything it wants it millions of times at the exact same moment, but once it's observed, that's when that particle comes to a stop and becomes reality. So when this stuff is happening around us all the time, it really doesn't affect us until something happens in our life and we look at that particle, which then leaves superposition and comes into our reality. And that's how we identify our reality. Okay, so that's like really deep. But on the parallel lives, our energy is the same. It's living in many different places at the exact same time, doing many different things. I heard one of the scientists explain it as if when you go to your closet and you're looking at the blue shirt or you're looking at the red shirt and you're trying to decide which shirt you want to wear, on the quantum level, all of a sudden, those two decisions spawn many different, go in many different directions. They go in superposition, which means everything that could possibly happen wearing the red shirt is going on in the universe. Everything that's happening on, if you wore the blue shirt, is happening. Okay. Once you decide which shirt you're going to wear, all of a sudden, you come out of superposition into a fixed reality, and that's when you start living in that moment, in that time. And in the quantum world, it's believed with the quantum leaping that if we don't like what's going on in this particular moment, we need more information, we want to change something, we could alter our frequency and leap from one reality to another reality and gain that insight and bring it back into our present moment. Does that make sense,
Hmm.
Maria?
Yes.
Does it make
Yes.
sense, Melissa? Are you following us?
Well, and even as you said that last bit, it made me think of my shaman teacher, where he had explained going in, imagining, and putting yourself into a position of seeing a change and bringing that forward. So I'm like, I don't know if he intended it to be maybe a little bit on that quantum leap, but that could have been exactly what he was, kind of training us to go do in a way.
Yeah, well, because it's your reality is defined in the moment by your frequency. Your frequency is set in place by your thoughts, which means if you don't like what's going on in the present moment, the only thing you need to do is change your thoughts, thus changing your frequency, which then leaps you into another reality. And that's and in essence, that's what quantum leaping is all about. It's about changing our thoughts to move into a new direction, to get new results or alter what our present reality is. And the only way of doing that is by changing our frequency, which is changing our thoughts.
I mean, the way I understood this when I first came across it, there's multiple thousands and thousands of frequency. And when you connect to that frequency, you are leaping into that reality. And then when you bring it back into your reality, you have pretty much gained a new insight, a new way of doing things, a new way of thinking things. But the world is just so vast with so many, and I call it the vortex of frequency because that's basic what it is. And it's not just in this galaxy, it's in multiple dimensional galaxies. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I had an explanation like on the frequency. It's just like your car radio. If you want to
Hmm.
listen to something else, you change your frequency. If you want your life to go in a different direction, you change your frequency.
Hmm.
Chair, one of our friends watching, says, I heard a good analogy for quantum space once, where a coin is binary, heads or tails, 0, 1, but quantum is like a spinning coin and it's both at the same time.
Yes.
Hmm. Yes, that's what
That's
it
that's
is.
the, that's what's referred to as the superposition. That everything can be anything or nothing all at the same time. In the quantum world, there is no definite something is one way or the other. It's on many different levels. It could be anything you want it to be, and if you know what you're looking for, you could leap to
Hmm.
that level to gain that insight. Maria, share with the audience about the gentleman you were talking about with the painting.
Okay. This gentleman, he was a silver instructor. He was a student. Then he became a silver instructor. He was referred to as the American monk. He created a book, and there's also a workshop about quantum jumping, and he made it so easy to understand because he touched the spiritual side of it, and that's what he knew. He tried to understand the quantum physics scientific part of it, and it was just too much for him. But he knows spirituality, so his name is Bert Goldman. And what he did is he experimented on himself. He was in his 70s, and he had never painted in his life, but he wanted to learn how to paint, and he started doing the quantum jumping, and that's what he referred to. So he did a meditation, and it's in his book. He did a meditation that you can jump into another reality. So he jumped into that reality of his double in another reality as a painter. He took back that in his reality, and he started doing paintings. His paintings were in galleries, and he was in his 70s when he did this. He also did the same thing when he wanted to learn to sing. He never sang a day in his life, but he did the quantum jumping, and he started singing. And this is something that he did it on the metaphysical spiritual end. Is a he got some acquired some talents and transformed his life in this reality.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean,
Hmm.
it it it's wonderful when you listen to the case study of people that have gone through the either the parallel lives, and we'll get to that. Uh, but the parallel lives and the quantum leaping to gain knowledge, and typically the way my understanding, the way I do it is through meditation. Now, there's something
Hmm.
called the void. In order to quantum leap, you need to be able to get into the void, which is letting go of your current reality and quieting the voices and just letting go of what you know, what you believe, what you think, what everything about who you are in that moment so that you could enter the void. And once you enter the void, there's many options. It's like walking down a hallway and seeing 1,000 doors and just identifying which door you want to go into. And once you go into that door, you're in a completely different reality, gaining the insight of what that particular level has to offer. And then
Hmm.
when you come out of trance, you come back into the present moment, you bring that information back with you.
Yes. And that is exactly what he did. He did it through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it with the intent of what he wanted to learn. So he walks you through a doorway. You know, you go into a meditation, and the meditation you end up going into a trance, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then you walk into a doorway, what it is that you want to learn. And he did this numerous times until because he kept on, well, I must have missed something, I must have missed something. So he did this numerous time with the intent of going the painting. He wanted to learn the painting. He wanted to make sure he perfected. So he did this numerous times. And then when he came back, it was to the point that it was a second nature for him. He just picked up the brushes and started doing the paintings.
Yes. And I think for most people, the hardest part about it is letting go of their current reality and what their thoughts are, what their beliefs are. It's hard to quiet those voices and get out of this so that we could go there and gain that knowledge. It's an acquired skill, and
Hmm.
it takes time. There's a I was telling Melissa before there's two really great movies for anybody that wants to dive a little bit deeper into the quantum theory, and the one is What the Bleep Do We Know, which came out in I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s. And then
Hmm.
years later, the sequel was Further Down the Rabbit Hole, which breaks it down even more.
Hmm.
And that's a great introduction to these multiple layers, multiple lives, parallel lives for anybody that's looking to dig a little bit deeper.
Yes.
Let's talk about the parallel lives,
Okay.
because the parallel lives, and this really shifted the way I thought when I first got into the metaphysics and into the hypnosis world. And I had many teachers that talked about parallel lives being just one or two other lives. And they explained it to me as when we come into this life, our lessons may be so great that one specific incarnation can't meet all the goals of that life. So your spirit will actually split off and create little mini me's to live in different places, and each will have its own set of lessons to learn. But because we're all part of the same energy, we're all learning together, and all that information is counting towards this incarnation and the things we have to learn. On the quantum level, it takes that theory and throws it out the window and says, no, it's not just one or two lives. It's like our energy can be in thousands of different places, tens of thousands of different places, living different experiences through entanglement, and allowing us to gain all this access through everybody that we've ever met, people that we're going to meet, people that our other energies have met and bringing back to us. Um, so it takes that original thought and really branches it off into a much wider scope that really, it becomes really confusing to think that there could be a
Mm-hmm.
thousand or more of me's out there, but collectively all that information is coming back, and we're all in this, working on this together. And everybody that I know, you guys, the people that are listening today, we're all part of this entanglement. We're all sharing information, we're all sharing energy, and so we're all part of this quantum theory together on the learning side.
Mm-hmm. How I learned about parallel lives, what was brought up to me is a timeline. And I look at the timeline where here's my present. I can go in the past and I can go in the future. I would prefer to go in the future, but you can in hypnosis we delve into this timeline, and I think we touched it in the shaman class also, because I know in pranic healing we talked about it too. There is this timeline, and you can just move the arrow, I guess, the cursor. You can move it back, forth, present. That's how I learned about parallel lives.
Yeah.
And it is hard, because when I first learned about this, or when it was first brought to my attention, I said, whoa, this is nuts, this is crazy. But if that's a possibility, that's cool, you know.
Mhm.
Yes. Well, and on a quantum level, there's no timeline. So what we refer to as 1800s is operating parallel to where we are right now in the 2000s, which is running parallel to what people are experiencing in the 3000 years. Everything's kind of running simultaneously, and it's just a matter of switching and leaping to these other areas, which is exactly what the show Quantum Leap was about. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about leaving, Cleveland and jumping to Boston. It was about leaving 1995 and leaping into the future to find out what 2025 would be like, or going back into the past. So the quantum theory says that everything's happened simultaneously, and
Mm-hmm.
time is our construct as to how we gauge where we are on this journey. On the quantum level, there's no such thing as time per se. Everything is running parallel. Now I know
Yes.
we've got a question there for the quantum leap, and the walk-ins. Okay, here's let me just say this is my belief. What I'm sharing with you today is my thoughts, my belief, things that I've learned. I'm not going to tell you I know everything or I'm an expert. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you once again is my belief. There's this thing called walk-ins and wanderers. I don't believe they're necessarily part of the quantum leap. They are part of our spiritual contract. What The way I understand walk-ins and wanderers, walk-ins are a spirit, uh, is a split energy when we are when we are creating this life and all of our many lessons. We're going to be at the council of elders. We're going through everything, mapping out our life, and we'll get to the point where we may say, you know what, my life, I only need 25 years to achieve what I need to achieve in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And then another spirit will say, okay, but I've got things I need to learn, and I can't learn them as a child. I have to be an adult. So you take the body for the first 25 years, and then after that, I will walk in, take the body for the rest of the life, so I could meet my life's purpose. So that's a walk-in. Two spirits,
Mhm.
two energies sharing one body, but at different times, and it's contracted on the other side prior to incarnation. Okay, wanderers, on the other hand, are spirit energies that they're more like attachments, where they're wandering, they're looking for a host, and they'll attach to someone. And a wanderer, the way to know if it's a wanderer is somebody's personality will just change. Like they'll be in a car accident and they're loving and they're passionate, and all of a sudden they wake up and they're just miserable, and there's just this hate in them. And it's and people will say, God, that's not like them. This is not the same person. And that's because a spirit energy attachment came in, and that was a wanderer that then came in and took over the body. And it's so I refer to that more as a spirit attachment. So I hope that answers the question on the walk-in. But I don't believe that's part of the quantum theory. I think that's more of a contractual thing on the spirit side. Does that make
Mhm.
sense for you?
Yes, yes, and that's how I see the walk-ins is totally separate. It's totally separate. Is a contract that you have done before you came down to this world.
Mhm.
And there are some spirits who do not want to go through the infancy. They don't want to go through that. They want to be a part of this experience, this school of life, but they don't want to go through the birth and that part of it. They just don't want to do that. So if they can find someone that is willing to go and do that, and then after, like Larry said, after 25 years, that soul goes off and another one comes in. But they don't change. They still embody some of the characteristic and traits of the previous soul. They
Mhm.
don't change. Wanderers, yes, they do change. Because the way I see it is wanderers, they are entities. They're just wandering about, and they're sick and tired of just watching life go by. They want to be a part of it.
Yes.
So thanks for
Hmm.
the question, Synth. I wouldn't have thought to ask that, so thank you. Um,
Yes.
whereas what parallel lives is me jumping into me in a different timeline, right? That would be the difference versus,
Hmm.
you know, the walk-ins or the wanderers. Um, and like Chair said, or they wake up speaking a new language. And sometimes you hear that people go in for surgeries, they go in for they go under anesthesia and they wake up and they're completely different. And so I usually joke with my people when I, have to go under, which I'll be doing again soon. Be like, hey, I'm the same bitch I was before, right? Like,
Yeah.
still me? Okay, we're good. And they're like, the fact that you're asking that means yes. So,
Yeah. And that's a good point, because uh, on the quantum level, we can gain that knowledge, the painting, the playing the piano, learning new languages. We can do that by leaping. But in my book, there's a story about a hypnosis session I did, where a lady who was very active, uh, she was a runner, never smoked a day in her life, was in a car accident, had a broken back. She went into surgery. The person in the surgical suite right next to her passed away, wasn't ready to go, took up, um, came in and took up a part of her uh, spirit energy and resided in her lung. So he attached his energy to her lung. When she came out of surgery and was able to start functioning, she had this desire for smoke cigarettes. And she,
Hmm.
she was a very, uh, it was it, very compulsive smoker out of nowhere. Nobody understood where this came from. And we were able to do the spiritual detachment. So you could gain information by leaping. You can also gain this information or behaviors, good or bad, by the spirit attachments as well. Two totally different topics. But
Hmm.
I thought it was important to kind of differentiate that it could happen either way.
And in the metaphysics side, there was this book that I read a long time ago where a person had a transplant and she was eating things that she normally do not eat. And it's because the spiritual essence was in that organ,
Mhm.
you know, so that needed to be cleared and let that essence of that spirit continue on also.
Yes.
So one of the questions that you guys had in your notes was, how can connecting with a parallel life help someone to heal or grow? And I think maybe you touched that, like you go in and now like you learn to paint, but
Hmm.
does spiritual practice and learning equate as easily as learning to paint, right? Because spiritual practices like, say, shamanism, or learning Reiki, or, that hypnotherapy, like, is that just as easy to bring back as it is learning to sing, playing the piano, painting? Would
You
you like?
have to be really committed to doing that because it does take a while. Like I said, he went several times back just to acquire because he wanted to perfect it. It's just like any kind of training that you will go through. If you go through Reiki, you go through hypnosis, you go through, it's any kind of training that you go to. Um, so you make your choices. You can seek out a teacher in this life, and I think you will do an energy transfer. That's why I love going into workshops, because there is an energy transfer that's happening, as well as the physical transfer that's happening.
Yes, and also when we're learning something like that, we're learning it by 2025 standards. And if we were to leap back and bring that forward from like 1964, the learning was so um, tainted, and I don't want to say tainted, but it was limited back then. And so if you go back and you bring that forward, you're only bringing back that knowledge that existed at that moment in time. So I think, like
And you
Maria
can,
said, things that we
yeah,
want to
you,
learn, we need to learn them by today's standards.
yeah, because I mean, you can get a little bit of the information back in the 1960s, take that back here, okay, and then go ahead and work on it and perfect it. And if need be, to seek out someone who is teaching that, you can combine the two, unless you want to go into the future. That's also an option also. But you don't know who has perfected it in the future. We don't know it in our timeline. But you can go and ask your guides to guide you through that also.
But on the other side of it, I think on the question that Melissa was talking about, by seeking your parallel lives, if you're in a situation you don't understand why why you have where this mental illness is coming from, why you're in all these um, abusive relationships, why you have problems with addiction, you can do a quantum leap to a higher level of yourself to gain that understanding and come back with that clear thoughts and that information to help you get back and heal in this life, so that you can move forward.
Now, what might be some signs that, we might already be slipping between lives and or parallel realities, and may not realize it right away?
One of the most obvious I know of is deja vu or dreaming.
Mhm.
Two totally different things. But a lot of times, deja vu is something that we've experienced, or one of our parallels has experienced, and we're sharing that information. And dream states is once again coming from our higher self, which is connected to all of our parallels, and sharing information. And a lot of times we don't understand our dreams because we're not living it. It doesn't always make sense to us, but we need to break it down and um, try to gain some understanding on it. So I think for me, that's the two most obvious in the wake state.
Mhm. Yeah. Unconsciously, I was taught by it was taught in one of my classes. Unconsciously, we already connect to all our parallel lives when we are sleeping. We're already connected. Our higher self, our soul, is connected to all of these lives. So we're already getting information, and so when we wake up the next day, and you had a problem that you couldn't figure out a couple of days ago, and then all of a sudden you get this answer, you connected to one of your parallel lives in the dream state. You just don't remember it.
Yeah, I refer to it as the superconscious. The
Yeah.
superconscious is our kind of our network, our Wi-Fi that connects us with everyone, everything, everywhere, and we just need to learn how to tap into it to gain that insight.
I was sitting here trying to scroll through and find an audiobook that I was listening to a couple of years ago. And the whole point was, I remember that the female character somehow, like, she was in this back library room, and each book on the shelf was a different version of her. And if she thought something was better, she could open up book and be transferred into it and live part of it, but she could come back out if needed. And what I thought was interesting was anytime she jumped into another one of herself, that current her would get brought back to the library. But that body that she is now in would stand there and suddenly like, why am I here? Why did I come into the room? And I'm like, that must be me constantly forgetting why I walked to the other side of the room because another me just came in for some reason. It was pretty interesting. It was a little slower moving, but I'm trying to remember the name and I'm digging through my library app for history, which it won't show it to me. But um it was like a bestseller a couple of years ago. So I'm like, let me listen to this. But, I'm like, how funny that in a way, whether or not the author maybe intended, like it seems like they were dabbling into some quantum in parallel lives in that
Mhm.
storytelling. But I do remember that it was like, if you think your life is so bad, go jump into this one, live it, and see what that other person would be going through because of all these other things that are happening from every choice that they've made. And is it really that better to have had, say a bunch of wealth that you don't have now, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and what she was finding was like, it's not necessarily greener pastures just to have that one thing that you think you're missing. But it was interesting. Um,
Yeah, we always want better. We always want easier. But there's a
Mhm.
trade-off. There's a yin and a yang for everything. I mean, when you take one thing, you're gaining everything that is connected with that. Good, bad, indifferent. It's we've got to understand when we change something in our life, we're changing everything. And
Mhm.
that could be a little bit scary at times. Um, because there's altering something is not always the best option. I mean, I always say, if you like who you are, if you like who you are in the moment, you've got to really embrace every bad thing that's ever happened to you because all those things have helped turn you into who you are. The good things, the bad things, every experience you've ever had has turned you into that. If you've leapt into something else and brought something else back, that would change who you are in this moment. So we have to be careful how much we dabble. Um,
Mhm.
into what we're trying to gain, because I don't think there's any perfect scenario. Whatever we gain on one level, we're going to lose on another level.
So the book was called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody wants to go track that down. Um, let's see. And so, Larry, you kind of touched into the next question that we were going to ask is like, can deja vu, sudden inspiration, or dreams be glimpses of parallel lives? Um, so you kind of already answered that one a little bit. Now, have either one of you had experience of jumping or an awareness of a parallel self?
Yes, I have. I did not know it at that time, and I thought it was just a lucid dream, but I know exactly what was going on. This is when I was back in Hawaii, and it really felt so real. But I knew it wasn't my life, but it was very confusing basically. And the gist of it is it gave me information that eventually I was going to end up here. I was going to end up in the mainland. I was going to leave the islands. And during that time period, I wasn't ready to leave the islands. But I've had this dream and it kept on coming to me, like about 4 or 5 times, and I couldn't make out what that dream was, but it felt so real. I saw a city. It wasn't a city in Hawaii. I saw myself walking through the streets of the city. So it was just giving me an idea. Now you can call that premonition, you can call it, but it just felt so real that I was living this life. So either my double was already here living this life, and I was shown eventually I was going to end up there. So yeah, I experienced it. It was very real.
Yeah, and I had a similar experience. However, I just like everybody, we've all had really difficult times in our life, and there was a time when I was really contemplating uh, the way my life was going, and I'm not going to say that suicide wasn't an option at that point. Things just seemed to be really at a dark place, and I didn't know where to turn from there. And that was about the same time that I was learning about meditation. And I got into a really deep meditation, and I was shown a room with a whole bunch of different what I thought were graphs, but they turned out to be a frequency waves, like different kinds of waves. And in essence, when I came back, when I opened my eyes, I I was just told that if you don't like what's happening, you've got to start with changing your thought, because your thoughts are what got you here. Your thoughts are going to be what pulls you out of this. And I started thinking about my life completely different. I wasn't thinking about my life from the dark place I was at. I was thinking about my life from, okay, I'm at ground zero. I can rebuild from here. And if I start rebuilding, anything is better than nothing. So that I started looking up at all the possibilities, because in the quantum world, everything's a possibility. There's possibilities are endless. Once we set our sights on something and observe it, that's when reality kicks in. But I learned that by changing my thoughts and not focusing on where I was, but focusing on where I wanted to go, all of a sudden that dark cloud started lifting. And since then, I've done a lot of meditations and a lot of leaps into, okay, what does my higher self have to show me for where I need to go, and what are my options? And once I know what those options are, I can come back here and alter my frequency, alter my thoughts based on what I saw in the various leaps as to what my
Hmm.
options were.
Now, can No, Larry, you answered earlier that deja vu is one way of realizing that maybe you've been quantum leaping, right?
Hmm.
Is that so? If I were to experience the deja vu right now, is that because like a past part of me had jumped to where I'm currently at? It had already seen it. So therefore, currently standing here, if I feel like I have deja vu, it's because an old me, past me saw this, went back with that knowledge.
It could be, but on the quantum level, that old you is living simultaneously. So it's not really the old you, it's just what you're identifying as the older you who's living parallel. And that information is being passed from them, from that one you to the current you. And that's where this deja vu is coming in, because it's a transference of information. And you're like, God, I've been here before. You may not have been here. It may have been one of your parallels that was experiencing it. And through collective consciousness, we shared that experience together.
Okay. I was trying to like help answer Lee's question, but that it's a big question, but that's what it was like. How is it similar to deja vu? Um, and you had mentioned in dreaming, and maybe that is in my younger years, I would have so many dreams where I would be me, but I would not know anybody that I was seeing, what was going on. There were some of them that everything took place like in a sepia tone, was in older, timelines. You could tell by the wooden shacks we were, people were living in, the way they were dressed. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Upon awakening, but it would feel so real. And like the fact that I
Hmm.
can still remember everything that happened. So I'm like, maybe that was me kind of, slipping into another timeline that I had experienced, and kind of sitting there going, well, holy cow, how does
Yeah.
that relate to what I know
But
now?
there was something in that dream that you needed to hear, you needed to understand, you needed to um,
Hmm.
bring
Clarity
back
on.
with you into that moment in time.
Okay.
Dreams have a connection with what we're going on. And so and it doesn't always make sense, but we have to try to it's like speaking a different language and trying to understand and translate it. We're trying to translate the dream as to what it means to me in this moment, and where we're gaining this insight, and why we're gaining the insight, and how is it going to impact me, or what do I need to know in this moment.
I'll have to tell you guys like the one that stood out the most and be like, what the hell was that I needed to um, but you both have mentioned earlier that a decision that we make now, and Larry, you gave the example of do I wear the red, do I wear the blue? The minute you make that decision, like infinite new realities pop open of everything possible to do in a blue shirt, everything possible to do in a red shirt. So those are new ones that are being created from every decision. If those realities or timelines are already in existence, would the new decision now ripple into them as well?
it
The new decision you make.
it just keeps building. It's every decision you make then splits off into many different areas. So everything we're experiencing from moment to moment just creates a new ripple, and it keeps just building from there. So it's not just one moment in time giving you 10,000 options. It's that moment in time gave you 10,000 options. And once you pick that, now you've got 10,000 more. And once you make the next decision, it opens up to 10,000 more. And I'm just grabbing a number. But everything we do keeps opening up. The possibilities are endless. And they will always be endless until we focus on a decision or a moment. When we notice that particle and we focus on it, that's when that reality is set in place. And
But
then
a decision I make now. So those 10,000 have already been made by a decision I made 5 minutes ago, right? I make another decision. That decision, does it then affect the previous 10,000 while creating yet a new?
Well, it does because there's still other parts of you in the parallels that are living off of those other existences because there's you're living in so many parallels. Your energy is living on each one of those 10,000. They're just continuing to move down that path. So
Okay.
it just keeps building that. It's infinite. The amount of information is infinite.
So I want to know
Yeah,
which one,
you're
have,
building on it.
right.
That's what yeah, you're building on it. So you're not changing it, you're building on it.
Okay. No, I was just sitting there thinking, like, if we make here and it creates new, does it also affect what ones were already created? Like the science behind that, if you
Yeah,
will.
well, and that's kind of where the butterfly effect comes from. The butterfly effect isn't about a butterfly per se. The butterfly effect is a metaphor for our thoughts. Our thoughts create waves, and everything we do sends a ripple effect, and what we do then affects other people, and then they, however it affects them, it creates more waves. So the waves are endless. One thing you do continues to go throughout um, the 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 mega universe. Um, it's endless. It just everything we do continues to grow and move.
Hmm. So we're getting close to our hour, which I feel like, and guys, let us know. We before we even went live, we were talking like, how do we keep this to just an hour? Because there are points we haven't even touched on.
Mhm.
And Maria threw out there of doing a part two. So if you guys would be interested in, going deeper into this, let us know in the comments. But for anybody who's just kind of learning about this, what is a safe way for them to start getting into quantum leaping?
Do you want to start, Maria, or do you want me to go?
The safe way that I learned how to do this was through meditation. Bringing your intention and through meditation. You may not get anything the very first time that you do it, but you keep doing it, with the intention that, I would tell my guys, like, I would like to learn how to basket weave. And I will, and I don't put a lot of, I don't analyze anything when I go into meditation. I do not analyze. Like Larry said, you quiet the mind, and you just leave this reality that I'm having right now, and I go into meditation. And when you go into meditation, you are completely open to the vast knowledge of the universe. So meditation for me is the best safe way to go. And you may not, don't expect anything to happen overnight. You have to build on it.
And I agree. Meditation is the number one vehicle to quantum leap. But
Hmm.
on a very simplistic level, on on a basic level, for people that are learning how to meditate, another way of leaping is by learning to change your frequency by changing what you want and what you want moving forward. So what does that look like? Um, if you're looking at you want to be more, it goes into the manifesting type arena where we have to believe that we can have things, that we're going to have things, and you have to alter your frame of mind to believe that you're moving in a certain direction. And as soon as you can get away from the past and start focusing on where you want to go, that gives your subconscious mind the ability to leap into that new you and create that new reality, which then you could bring back into your current reality and um, alter the direction you're going. So it's the easy way is changing your thoughts, because our thoughts create our reality. If you don't like what's going on in your life, you got to look at it different. By changing the way you look at things, alters the way you're going to respond to things, and it alters the way you're going to view these things and how you're going to get past them. So on the basic quantum level, it all starts with your thoughts, which is a parallel to the meditation, because in order to meditate, you've got to quiet your mind and alter your thoughts to what you want. So the meditation is a little bit deeper. Does that make sense, Melissa?
Yeah, it's kind of like setting the attention and the purpose of what you are actively now wanting to search for to help guide where you need to go in that meditation to the proper life to bring back what you're looking for.
Yes.
Is how I just understood
Yes.
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 Now, are there any safety protocols that need to happen while doing this?
No drugs or alcohol while you're doing it.
Yes.
You need to,
Yes.
and that's, there's a lot of people that like psychedelics and different things like that because they feel like it lets them go. That also opens you up to a lot of things that you really don't want to have to face or have to deal with. So you need to be of sound mind and body to be able to do this safely.
So to help with the meditation, what about our friends that might have the monkey mind and the ADHD mind? What can they do to help focus in for that meditation?
It's a practice. You just keep working at it. You've got to keep working at it. It's the hardest thing to do is that very first deep meditation. Once you get there, the first thing you're going to think about is, did I really experience that? Was that real? But that's your conscious mind trying to cancel out what you've experienced. So it's about accepting it, even though it may not make sense to you in the moment. It's about accepting it for what it was and what you've experienced, and keep building on it. Because we're really quick to say, yeah, that didn't happen, or I just created in my mind, when in reality, you're learning a new skill. Meditation comes easy for some people. It's very difficult for other people. If you've got a very active mind, if you're stressed, if you've got a lot going on in your life, it's very difficult to quiet the mind and focus on an intention of where you want to go and what you need to do. But you got to keep working at it. You've got to keep working at it. And is there a length of time to sit in meditation? There isn't. I know people that can meditate and do whatever they want in 3 to 5 minutes. I know other people that will sit and meditate for hours. It's whatever's right for you. The shorter amount of time, the easier it is to stay focused. Longer meditations takes a lot deeper discipline. For myself, I can meditate for half hour, 45 minutes like that. Okay. I start getting into the hour or hour and a half meditations. My mind starts checking in and saying, okay, you know what? You've got other things that you need to do. You need to come out of this. And we've got things. So even for me, there's times where it becomes difficult, but the length of meditation isn't important. It's the depth of meditation that's important.
I found for me, because I have a hard time sitting still and meditating. I also have a hard time doing yoga, which is slow and meditative, right? Go figure. I rather lift weights than do yoga. What I found to work for me was kind of like, I guess they would call it like an active meditation, where I would go 2-3 times a week and go do like a 5K outside of my house, outside in nature. And I found that if let's say prosperity was like, I want more prosperity in my life and for my business. As I'm walking and kind of hearing the footfalls, for each footfall, I'm like, that would be more sales, more website traffic, and just kind of doing that. And like, what would that look like once, as that's coming into life? And I would picture myself literally walking into that. So in a way, my mind the ability and the permission to wander, but in a certain time or like boxed frame of you can wander at how that prosperity would look like to bring it in. You're not allowed to wander over about the laundry and the dishes. You can wander
Mhm.
what it would be to be able to hire like the housemaid to take care of those for you now. And so just, doing that, but those footfalls is almost like that metronome to help keep the mind
Mhm.
concentrating on that and doing like an active meditation to walk into that. So that helped me because I can't sit still. I'm either going to fall asleep on you or I'm going to check out and I'll be mentally doing so many other things besides that sit and be quiet. I just know me. um,
Well, congratulations, because that was a quantum leap. That was a basic
Yeah.
quantum leap for you.
I did
That's
a
it. Yeah, you did that.
bunch while doing 5Ks. So
You
yay.
Yep.
you went through that doorway. You went through that doorway. That is a quantum leap. A lot of us are doing this and we don't really realize that what we're doing. Um, I started learning about meditation by starting listening to my breath because your breath has a rhythm. And if my mind starts to wander, when I start to meditate, I just pay attention to my breath. That's what I do. It has a rhythm. It's my rhythm. No one else has this rhythm. It's my own rhythm. Yours was the foot. Mine is the breath. So that's how I started doing this. And if a thought comes in my head, I was taught that you go ahead and let it go through. You can't stop it. Just let it go through. The more you try to stop it, the more of them is going to come in your head. The monkey talk is going to get louder and louder and louder. So I can meditate. I've got to a place now in my life that I can meditate and be down for an hour and a half. Silva was the one that really taught me. And Silva, the first day of class, we were meditating for 6 hours out of the 8 hours of that class.
Oh, I would have got up
So,
and walked out like, yeah.
so and I've also been in other classes where we did the walking meditation. We could walk with someone, or we can walk on our bike, but we have to pay attention what's in front of us. We have to, because it was like a roadway, so we had to pay attention on the background noise so we don't get accidentally go in the middle of the road and someone just lost control. So we had to bring awareness. So that type of meditation was bringing awareness. And and no talking. We weren't allowed to talk to anyone. So I preferred to walk by myself. And I was really communing with nature and what the awareness I was bringing in when I was meditation and doing the meditation walk. So it's like what some of the monks will call it being mindful
Mhm.
meditation. Being aware, being in the present, what is going on.
Mhm.
Yep. And
So,
and another great example of mindful meditation is looking at a piece of art or looking at something that is very complex and just focusing on it and letting your mind just kind of go and let it go wherever it wants, and just allow yourself to be absorbed in that picture. I mean, that's a form of waking meditation. There's all kinds of different levels of meditation, and they don't all involve closing your eyes and going really, really deep.
mhm.
There was a question that popped up
Yeah,
um,
about using
about
frequencies and
frequencies. Yeah.
sounds. And I know you and I covered sounds, but what about
Hmm.
frequencies? And my first thought would be like tuning forks or something. Have you
Hmm.
noticed use
Hmm.
different frequencies, not breath or, but more vibrational sound for meditation?
Well, I have a frequency generator which you can't hear. It will put out a frequency in the airwaves, and there's times where if I'm having a hard time sleeping and I just need to quiet my mind, I'll change my frequency generator, and it will automatically start. My mind will just start slowing down and going to almost like numbing out, and next thing I'll know, I'll wake up, several hours later. So frequency generators are really, really powerful. But the thing is, you have to really do a lot of research on which frequencies, because there's literally hundreds of thousands of frequencies, and you've got to know which frequency you're looking for. And I don't know what a good resource is. I found some
Hmm.
basic ones for sleep or for meditation or for active mind work, but they're just the basic ones. There's so many out there.
Chair asks, is it possible to go too deep into meditation and sort of go into a waking coma?
No,
No.
no. You'll
Mm-mm.
go into
No.
you'll go into something called somnambulism, which is a sleep-like state, which will put you in a dream-like state, and then your body will naturally just wake you up. Or
My
if you get too deep, it'll just put you into that dream state, and then you'll wake up.
my first
Yeah.
thought when I read that, and Maria, you remember, pretty sure I think this was the year you were in with me when we did the death rites and the shamanism, and we had to write like a contract to our teacher that, you know, I, Melissa, give Don Zane Kerfman permission to yank my ass back to the living side. Um, and because he was taking like the soul out of the body, which, you didn't die, but you were leaving. And so it was kind of like a meditative state in a way, because there's still that energy cord of your spirit to your body, and you're off doing really cool things and making sure that you came back. So I don't know if that really means like, yeah, he could have a room full of coma like people if you're still out wandering and he's like, you need to get back here. And you're like, whatever, I'm doing my own thing. And he's like, but I've got this contract, get back right now.
Yeah.
Which is really more of like a permission that you're giving like your teacher healer to literally
Hmm.
force you back. Um,
I think that's kind of like an astral projection type thing, where you're astral projecting your energy, your spirit somewhere else and leaving the body.
kind of the couple times that I've done astral on purpose, felt a little different. Um, Leaving the body for death rites. Those of us that have texture issues, mine is wet jeans. Can hate that. As he was starting to pull me out, like the solid body felt awful, felt like just wet, scratchy. Like I wanted to hurry up and get out. Whereas astral projecting was like the feel, the sensation of coming out of the navel and going like it was pleasant. It
Okay.
was like, I'm going to go on a walk now and go have fun. Whereas coming out of the body, like you couldn't wait, at least me, to get out. Um, so it's probably a good thing I had a contract with him to be like, get your ass back down here. Um, and the joke with him was like, well, what do you tell the paramedics if you got 27 people here? They're not technically dead, but they're not here either. Like, what do you tell them, and what do you tell the cops?
What do you tell the judge?
Yeah, right. I would like to think at some point, like the higher self, or guides, angels, whoever, somehow you're going to come back. Like you can't really stay out there forever. So I agree, Larry. Like I don't think you can go into a coma that way, but that's the closest that I think would happen. But I still think eventually your consciousness is going to wake up or come back, do what it's supposed to be doing. So no fear there. Do either one of you have any like final wisdom for our friends who may want to start, quantum leaping and making changes for themselves?
There are some great videos and lectures on YouTube that are very basic level quantum leaping and meditation. So I would start there. And when you're doing that, kind of listen. You may want to listen to 3, 5, 10 different practitioners and find somebody that on a spirit level you're comfortable with, because there's certain people that their voice is like nails on a chalkboard. Their cadence doesn't match yours. So by by listening to various people talk about the same thing, you'll gravitate towards someone, and then that's where you're supposed to start.
What about you, Maria?
Um, if you can get a book, it's still being published by Bert Goldman. He talks about quantum jumping, and that book, like I said, is he brought it down to a level where you can understand it. Um, that is one way you can have more information about it. A great deal of what quantum, like I said, we're doing it anyway when we asleep. We're doing it anyway. We leave our body, we commune with our other soul particles, and we get information. Now it's time to be aware to do something that you might want to learn, from someone in the future, or someone in the past, or someone right in the present but in another dimension. So um, as far as frequency is concerned, I wanted to touch on. I came across Robert Monroe, so that is another one also that you might want to look into. I know there's a website I use. Some of them when I was starting into frequencies and listening to frequencies, and it did help me to meditate because it's a rhythm again. But if you don't want to invest into that, like I said, the rhythm that you have is your breath. The rhythm that you have is your foot when you're walking.
I did find on Scribed the quantum jumping PDF free. I put it in the comments. Facebook won't let it go through. It says it's against their community standards because Facebook be Facebooking. So if you go to Scribed and look it up, I'm sure you'll find it. Because earlier I was looking through some of my book distributors, like, hey, can I order this to have a copy or two? And they all went like, we don't know of that book. So um, there's the scribed version in PDF form. Mind Valley, I believe, had some of his stuff, but I did find some of his talks and meditations for Goldman on
Hmm.
YouTube. So there's a lot of wealth of knowledge you can find out there on YouTube. Um,
Hmm.
but thank you guys
And
for joining us.
start
What's that?
slow and start slow.
Yes, yes,
Just
build on it.
yeah.
Now, if you're local and you want to come in, you can bug Larry and Maria at different times of the month about quantum stuff. And if they're not with the client, I'm sure they'll be happy to talk about it. Um, I will point you to one of them if you come up to me and ask about it. And I'm like, go over there, go ask them.
I
Um,
love this subject. I love this subject. It's just so fascinating.
but well, I'm just like, holy cow! I was kind of doing it a little bit without even realizing it. I'm like, cool, yay!
Yeah.
It, I just, there's a phrase when I started looking into quantum theory. There's a phrase that kind of sums it up. I just love it. And it says the a lack of evidence does not necessarily mean something doesn't exist or doesn't happen.
Hmm.
It just means
Hmm.
we haven't found the evidence yet. Because a lot of times people will say, "Well, show me the evidence." Some things we just don't have that evidence yet. We haven't uncovered, but we're still working towards it.
Right. We just haven't figured out in this current mentality of learning how to
Hmm.
conduct the proper experiment to find the evidence or to
Right?
prove the evidence that it's not a thing. So
Yep.
the great thing about science is always learning and always, giving us new results. Um, well, thank you guys for joining us for a very fun semi tip of the iceberg talk on parallel lives and quantum leaping. I was going to say semi in depth, and I'm like, no, we didn't go very deep.
No, no.
Probably the tip of the tip.
Right. So I think we're going to have to check all of our schedules and go in for a part two onto this because I did see our friends who are with us tonight say yes, please, for a part two and more in depth. Chair's like there is no tip. But we hope you guys can join us again next Tuesday evening for another episode of the Healer's Corner. Next week, we will be going into gemstone healing with Maria Celeste of Gems by Spiritual Dancer. She's a very fun lady. She talks with these rocks like they're her people in her room, and it's amazing and to watch her do it at shows and just her facial expressions because her face is speaking the conversation she's having. It's adorable. So we hope you can join us. And if you have questions about gemstone and healing, that is the time to bring those questions to us. But we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank